What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What's going on? Welcome back. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Men of Prestige. Ladies and gentlemen of Prestige, we have a very important topic to talk about today. Paternity test. Mandatory or nah? Right? Let's talk about this one today. This is always a very, almost seems like a very triggering topic for a lot of people, right? For obvious reasons. But let's talk about it because, again, this is especially for us Nigerians and Jamaicans, if you're in the house, this is a very important one for us to talk about. So without any further ado, let's just get right into the conversation, shall we? Let's go. All right, welcome back. So let's talk about this topic, paternity tests. I've got a few things we want to cover. We have a story that we're going to cover. This happened to always. Hey, D'Souza, good to see you, D'Souza. Good to see you. Welcome. We also had somebody left. It looks like this person left a chat earlier on before we actually got live. So this might even be a good way to start the conversation. Mama Jojo, raw and real. She says mandatory. Whole day we're crucifying these men. Every man needs a DNA, right? According to Pastor Shola, who is the OG, 70% of married Nigerian women, children are not their husbands. We're going to review that. We're going to review that as well today. You know, Nigerians, we're going to talk about this. Ladies, Nigerian ladies, we're going to talk about this. I would like to hear your thoughts. I would like to read your thoughts, I should say, on this issue, because there's some studies apparently that shows that we're number 2, next to only the Jamaicans in the world when it comes to paternity frauds. Ladies, we got to talk about this, all right? We have to talk about this. Come on, we have to talk about this. Now, I've been part of conversations where, you know, frankly, I could see it mixed up with a bunch of other nonsense. You see, that's one of our major issues. We tend to mix up a bunch of issues together. We never separate the issues, right? You know, if you're talking about paternity fraud, you're talking about paternity fraud. If you're talking about making paternity tests mandatory, we have to talk about that. If we're talking about cheating, we have to talk about that. Those are all separate issues that tend to come off as interwoven, but not exactly. But we're going to talk about that today. Okay? As a matter of fact, there's a story that I want to share with you, and then we'll talk about it, right? Now, before we go, hey D Love, good to see you, D Love, good to see you. But right now, let's go ahead. If you're watching me either as a rebroadcast or live, do me a favor. There's only one thing you have to do. Just help me hit that like button, okay? But if you really want to help, you can grab the link and send it to 3 other people. Now, let me announce this before we get started. We'll go back to our regular time tomorrow for the rest of the week, okay? 5 p.m. tomorrow. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time during the day, okay? It's still late night for a lot of Europeans, right? But yes, we'll be back to that normal time tomorrow, just in case you're wondering, okay? Anyway, so let's talk about this thing right here. Let me go through the story first. No, let's get some background first. Let me share some of the things. I saw 2 articles on Vanguard, Nigerian Vanguard, and Pulse Nigeria. Okay, and I want us to review those 2 articles together. Okay, I think that's gonna give us a good background of what we're trying to cover here, so we can have some context, right? Let's get some context. Yeah. All right, good. This is on Vanguard. It says Nigeria ranks 2nd highest in paternity fraud in the world. This is not something we can be we're not proud of this part about us, right? Obviously, but we must have that conversation. Let's talk about it, right? So here's what the article says by Ashola Ogundikpe, Yetunde Arabi, and Evelyn Osman. It says 3 out of 10 Nigerian men are not biological fathers of their children. I think this is what you were talking about. Mama Jojo. This is what Mama Jojo was talking about. So it says, let's just go ahead and read this together, right? Let's read it together. It says, a DNA test revealed that Christopher Johnson wasn't the biological father of the 3 children he had nurtured and invested in for almost 2 decades. This will absolutely destroy a man, okay? It will destroy a man particularly because how could he ever trust anything ever again? Not even you. Forget the person who committed the fraud, right? How could he possibly ever trust anyone ever again, right? And what could possibly justify this, right? I'm not sure what can justify a deliberate fraudulent act, right? But let's keep going. The children, Esther, 19, Shirley, 17, and Stephen, 15, were born by the same mother, who unfortunately was deceased. See, she's gone. Nonetheless, this man is going to be destroyed. His very sense of being, everything he's ever believed in, including himself, including his self-esteem, is questionable suddenly, right? So he can't, even if he wants to do the quote-unquote right thing and continue to be father for these kids, it's not necessarily going to be able to do that. From an emotional standpoint, it's not necessarily going to be capable of doing that, right? Because his belief system is probably shattered. He can't trust anything ever again. Anyway, let's keep going. And I'm going to tell you, even beyond the person who is going through this, when people listen to this story, it destroys their ability to be able to trust as well. Even if they've never gone through this kind of situation before, if they can remotely relate to it, it's one of the lessons we're going to get today, right? If they can relate to it remotely, it can destroy their ability to trust. And if you can't trust, relationships can't thrive. It's just an oxymoron, right? Christopher, a successful but retired architect, was compelled to find out the truth about the paternity of the children after a stranger turned up one day to claim he was their biological father. That's mad, oh. And challenged him to a DNA paternity test. So even if he can claim, like, listen, no, I don't believe you and I'm not doing no DNA test, it will mess with his mind. He won't have peace of mind, because the mind is really delicate like that. He can't have peace of mind once that happens to him like that, right? So let's keep going. Christopher received the shock of his life when the result proved that the stranger was indeed the children's real father. Then also, is it possible that he had doubts already from the past, right? Is it possible that he had some doubts before in the past? I believe there are some that probably never thought that could ever happen, but I also believe a lot of people had doubts, and they just waited and winged things along, and they were afraid of doing the test, you know. You can understand why someone would be afraid of doing that kind of a crazy test, right? It turned out that the man and his late wife had been involved in a long secret love affair that produced the 3 children he erroneously assumed belonged to him. Chai. It's just bad. Not good. DNA paternity tests are unraveling a lot of buried family secrets. Keeping family secret isn't as easy as it used to be for obvious reasons. Information is leaking through everything, right? Keeping family secrets isn't as easy as it used to be, and just one DNA test, right, could change everything for better or for worse. It's not good. Okay? This word is not accurate. DNA test will change everything. The better word here is DNA test will change everything. Most likely for worse. At least it will get worse before it gets better, if ever. I don't care what circumstances. I don't care how good you are at communications. When you have the need to do a DNA test after being in a relationship, I'm not talking about before the relationship. Before the relationship, you can knock yourself out. If the person wants to continue to be with you after ordering for a DNA test, that's fine. It's a communication, right? Everyone believes in communication, so I just communication, right? Sure. Okay. Sure. Let me get my sound effects ready just in case I need to. Communication is everything.
Oh, you're right.
You're right, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care what the circumstance was. If you're already in a relationship and this wasn't part of the conversation before, and there's a need to now do this thing, the DNA test, it will change everything, first for worse. Potentially, most likely, it will stay worse or worst. And if it's going to get better, it will get worse first. Okay? Like I always tell you, we're really not that intentional. Stop the cap completely. Okay? Emotions are real. And if somebody feels like I found out for the first time that you never trusted me, that will destroy them just as much. Right? That can destroy them just as much. So it's not a simple conversation. Okay? All right, good. Many children are experiencing paternity scandals by learning that their father is really not their biological father. The perception that paternity fraud is high in Nigeria is not unfounded. Reports have been making the rounds that Nigeria has the second highest of paternity fraud in the world after Jamaica. Now, I would like to see what this report is, the actual source. If a Vanguard is going to report this, they really should be referencing that report here, but This is the most respected, one of the most respected newspaper online or newspaper period in Nigeria. But they probably won't source this, of course. They won't cite the source of this stat. But anyway, let's keep going. Let me just pretend that I believe it, right? It's possible, okay? Plus, they didn't say majority, they're just saying second highest. So if it's 20% in one country, it's 30% in one country, it's still not majority, right? But of course, people are interpreting this as majority. Like Nigeria has the second highest of paternity fraud in the world. They're interpreting that as, 90% of them are doing it. There are people doing that, okay? If you're doing that, you're lame. Stop it, okay? Many men have been unknowingly raising children that are not theirs, and to curb the trend, there have been calls for introduction of mandatory DNA testing at birth. And that's the main question today. Do you think it should be mandatory? If a country is declared to be the second highest rate of paternity fraud in the world, and remember, in the beginning, there was also this crazy ass claim here that says 3 out of 10. That's 30% still not majority, but still a lot, right? 3 out of 10 Nigerian men are not biological fathers of their children. If you consider that, right, is 30% enough to start writing a new law that makes it mandatory? And I want to know your personal opinion. Do you think it should be mandatory from your personal standpoint, right? Quite interestingly, a lot of ladies I've seen would say, yes, make it mandatory, you know. But I'm not sure everyone is thinking this all the way through properly. Okay, let's keep going. The issue of paternity is a trilogy. It's moral, scientific, and legal issue. Okay, I think it's also emotional, right? I think it's also psychological, right? As far as paternity as an issue, right? So a lot more than trilogy, but let's keep going. The concerned commentator noted series of DNA tests carried out in laboratories are showing that a number of children are being fathered by men who are not biological fathers. So if they're doing DNA tests and they're collecting the data, they can collect what's the percentage of reports coming out to say you are not the father. How many of you watch Maury? I never really watched Maury, but they used to show it every morning on the only TV channel that was available anywhere. And we stumbled into it quite a bit. So that's here in America, by the way. And it was significantly a lot of people fathering children that are not biologically theirs. All right. So we know that it's everywhere in the world. But again, I still think, they said, Niger, worry no they carry last, right? I think it's okay to carry last on this type of trend or this type of statistics. I think it's okay to carry last on this one, don't you all think? Right? Saturday Vanguard investigation revealed that traditionally in Nigeria, paternity of a child is commonly determined by acknowledgement, presumption, or by proof, obviously, or by proof. What type of proof? Traditionally, what type of proof? Because DNA, I don't think DNA test is older than, I don't think it's up to 40 years yet. But anyway, let's keep going. Probably the most common mode of paternity is by acknowledgement. Yeah, like, you're pregnant? Okay, thank you. You're pregnant for me because obviously we've been dating. Of course, that's the most common, right? And even at that, we're still saying that 70% is accurate, right? And that's off of the actual tests that are taken, right? Once a man admits he's the father of a child, the case is closed. Well, that's the same thing everywhere. Once you sign that birth certificate, it's a wrap. It's yours, right? That's just the way it works. Now, is that not okay? Do you think there's a problem with that? Knowing well that human beings, there are evil human beings, both men and women, yes, they exist, that we Gbomoshun Foba, right? Basically, give what belongs to Paul to Peter, right? They exist. Some of them are highly involved in a fraudulent network of actually exchange people's babies or selling babies to people that don't belong to them. So that's also another factor that I don't see that a lot of people talk about. People actually steal babies and give to other people, and people sell other people's babies at the hospital. It happens. Okay. In fact, there was a case here in America some few years back. A lady that as she had raised this little girl up all the way up to like 21, 20 or something like that, and she was found to have stolen the baby, and she ended up going to jail. And they tried to link the baby back up with her family, but she didn't want any parts of that. And she wanted her mother, the person she knew, even though she knew what she had done, she didn't want to be somebody else's daughter. And she stuck with her, right? I'm not sure what to call that. That's not loyalty. I'm not sure what to call that, but she knew what she wanted, what she knew, and she wasn't going to change that, even though after they told her, like, for a fact, you were a stolen baby. She went to jail. She kept going to visit her from the story. I don't remember that. I wish I could reference that story right now, but it was a real life story on one of these 2020 on ABC and stuff like that. So it happens everywhere in the world, okay? That doesn't change the fact that there are studies that shows that Nigeria is second on the list. We need to carry last on this one. Right? Anyway, a man is presumed to be the father since once the child is born within wedlock. It is often said that a woman who is in the best position to identify the father of her child, a woman is in the best position to identify the father of her child. Well, at the very minimum, she knows she's not sure if she had multiple sex partners at the time of conceiving the baby, right? So she knows that at the very minimum, right? So once a woman fingers a particular man, case closed. And some people say that's not fair. Well, I think it's fair. And you look at me like I'm crazy. I think it's fair because you can count other things that the men have upper hands in our society today as well. So if it's just that one thing, then it is what it is. And obviously the society as of right now has deemed it to be fair, because if it wasn't fair, somebody would have fought and changed that. And if you think, oh, we just didn't get to it yet, okay, let's get started. Let's start fighting for it, right? However, developments show that proven paternity is often not as straightforward. But rampant cases of denials, disputes, and counterclaims of paternity have been making the rounds. Wait, counterclaims? See, listen, once you bring this phrase, DNA test, into a family, it will get worse. Not could, it will get worse before it gets better, if it ever gets better. Okay, that's just a fact of life. Now, so what do? Don't do the test. I'll tell you what to do before we round off this session. Okay, if God forbid, if you ever find yourself in this situation, right? When the DNA test of their children failed to match with that of the men believed to be their fathers, several women were accused of unfaithfulness and condemned into the abyss of marital ignominy. But the resulting scandal snowballed into one of the most shocking revelations in the history of parental disputes. But for the confession of a dying Zambia nurse, Elizabeth Baya Mewa, who owned up to swapping about 5,000 babies over 12 years just for the fun of it. Oh my God. Terrible. This woman might never have restored their ruined homes or removed the garb of unfaithfulness and adultery as the truth behind the genetic discrepancies of their children. Paternity might never have been unraveled. That is crazy. All right, so let's look at some more staggering statistics. Before we get into that, let me see what you all are up to. Do me a favor before we continue. Do me a favor. I know. 1 second. Help me hit that like button, okay? Eunice, good to see you, Eunice. She says, why not confirm that with a DNA test? Confirm what? I mean, I guess that's a good question. I'm gonna pin that question. I'm gonna come back to it. That's a very good question. D'Souza says, I couldn't live with the uncertainty. I need answers. Right? Hey, Chinye. Chinye says she is pure evil. She is definitely purely evil. The 5,000 swapper. She's definitely purely evil. Absolutely, I agree with that. All right, I'm gonna come back to your question, Eunice. That's a fantastic question for the purpose that I'm bringing this topic up. Okay, let's get back to the staggering statistics. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, according to available data, at least 4 out of 10 men are not the biological fathers of their children. Okay, so they collected sample. The only sample they collected are people going to the DNA lab, not regular people who may be happy in their home. They dated. That's typical, right? They were dating just that one person. The babies look like their fathers. They have 1 or 2 features that look like them, right? So, but the lab data, right? Those are people who already had questions. At least one person had questions about the DNA test, because we also know that they're not making it mandatory yet, right? We also know that they're not making it mandatory yet, right? So we can't claim that like this is just all of 200 million people in Nigeria. The data is probably skewed simply because we know that the people that are going to the lab are people that already have questions, meaning there's a high chance there's going to be discrepancies already. These are some of the things you're not going to hear out there. Okay, what the assessment you're going to hear with other people is like, it's terrible number, we should all be making it mandatory. No, it's not that simple. That number is coming out of the labs. People that a good percentage of them already had doubts, and they had their reasons why they had doubts. Okay, so could it still be true that when you do that number across board, the number is still just that bad? Yes, it can still be true. What I'm saying is that we don't know that. Staggering statistics. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, according to available data, at least 4 out of 10 men are not the biological. Lagos-based DNA experts confirm that many men do not know that they are not the biological fathers of their child. That's a fact. One expert noted that currently the situation in Nigeria is quite high, and the majority of firstborns are affected. Majority of firstborns, for obvious reasons, right? Maybe they were dating. They didn't think it was exclusive, right? They didn't really think it was exclusive. They didn't think they were exclusive. At least one person didn't think they were exclusive before engaging themselves, and maybe they brought the pregnancy from somewhere else, right? And I can understand that. I can see how that is. It's still a terrible thing to do to anyone. If you're not sure and you were double dating before somebody proposed to you, say, hey, I can't live with the rest of my life. Knowing at the back of my mind that I have doubts, I think we should do DNA tests. Now, why wouldn't people do that? Because they're probably afraid they would lose that relationship. Okay, now, if we really gauge the two risks, which one is riskier? Living a lie for the rest of your life, or potentially losing out on a relationship that can still be destroyed later on anyway? These types of secrets will destroy the family eventually, even long after you're gone. Okay? Like for example, the lady that we mentioned earlier is deceased, right? Already. But it's still gonna destroy their family, right? They're not gonna be like, after all, she's dead. No, no, it's still gonna destroy because it's actually much more emotional than everything else that they claimed earlier. Biological, blah blah blah, scientific, all that kind of stuff. No, it's much more emotional. These are people who allowed other human beings into a space that's sacred, their heart. Right? According to the American Association of Blood Banks, globally, a third of all men, a third, oh my God, a third of all men are not the actual fathers of their presumed children. There you have it. It's not just Nigerians. My life has crumbled. Living means nothing to me now than a pack of trash. It would have been better for me not to be born than to face such miserable and uncanny situation. That's a quote. These were the shattering words of Mr. Shogunle. Destroyed. The worst way to destroy a man is to destroy him emotionally and psychologically. Right? Because he's still here physically, but it's like a dead man walking. Wu recently discovered that the 4 boys who he witnessed their birth and catered for as a loving father would be, after all, not his biological children. He's chilling. Oh, good. The startling discovery has not only betrayed the trust and confidence he had in his wife of 12 years, Betty, it has also stolen the happy atmosphere in their family. Yeah, the genesis of this startling revelation began in October 2017 after a heated argument between the couple over Betty's refusal to perform her conjugal responsibility. They had issues. This is the part that many people don't talk about, right? Before a typical person would ask for a DNA test, a typical person in a marriage, I'm not talking about people that are outside of a marriage. I'm not talking about people that want to be married. I'm talking about people that actually made it to actually get married. They usually did that because they were able to let their guards down and allow a human being into their lives. There's a lot of single people that I just don't see that ever happening for them because, number one, the environment is conducive to lie to ourselves. Okay, in addition to, even if you're not lying to yourself, right, in addition to the fact that some people just don't want to get married. That's a fact. But even if they're lying to themselves, the environment is conducive to tell yourself that kind of lie long enough. Okay, so it's okay to say, no, I will never, but the truth is that for you to allow a person to come into your world and actively try to do life with them, you're not going to be asking for DNA test. No, you've trusted beyond that, right? You've trusted that person beyond even having to ask that kind of stuff. If you are finding yourself in a situation where you're asking, it's because there's a breakdown in the marriage and the underlying relationship anyway. That's why. Okay, people just don't come out of the woodworks and say, hey, I want to do it. That's not how that works. Okay, all right, that's not how that works. It's because there's some doubt, there's a breakdown, there's no trust, there's a betrayal that has happened. There is usually other forms of trigger. Like, people just don't wake up and say, hey, I heard this on the news, I'm just going to go do it. No, that's not how that works. Okay, but it's sounding on the streets of internet, social media conversations like that's how that works. No, that's not how that works. For you to be doing life with the person, you trust them, especially if you're doing it right, and you're enjoying it. The last thing on your mind is DNA test, right? All right, a husband, a banker, had to involve their pastor, having endured sex starvation for 7 months. There's usually underlying issues. Yes, she did a long time ago, but again, there's that devil never really leaves that family, right? His decision to bring the matter to the pastor's knowledge was mainly born out of news making the round that his wife was having a clandestine, what is that? Oh my God, what kind of word is that? Relationship with their former driver. Jesus Christ. A master's degree holder identified simply as James, who later got a job with one of the leading oil and gas firms in the country. This was after much confrontation and persuasion for his wife to tell him the truth. So he had doubts, okay? Like no one that don't have doubts will be asking for DNA tests. And you need to admit to that so that you can say, hey, I have doubts. This relationship is fucked. I'm sorry. It's a wrap. Let's acknowledge that first. And then you can now with your full chest say, you know what? I love my children, but I want to do a DNA test too. But what I'm saying is people are pretending like, oh no, it's nothing. I just want to know. No. That right there is big time cap. Okay?
Stop the cap.
That's cap. It's not that you just want to know. I saw D'Souza said earlier, certainty. Well, she's a woman, so, but there are men that say, I just want certainty. No. You have doubts. Your underlying relationship is shot already. Okay? And you have the right. Okay? Because remember?
Well, you're right.
If you have doubts, you have the right to clear your doubts. I just want you to be aware that your relationship is going with it. Okay? Okay? It's gonna go with it. It's just the reality. Okay? So don't go and be delusional and say she should understand. Bruh. You're thinking rational. There's nothing rational about this situation. It's bad. Paternity fraud is really, really bad. There's no rationalization. First of all, you're not rational. Okay? Let's first of all declare that. You're not rational. Okay? You're not rational. You couldn't be. Let's make sure that we're with the right, we're on the wrong internet connection. So we might blink for a second here. Let me just see if I can, we're on the wrong internet connection. Let me see if I can get it right. Funny enough, it's been working fine. Let's see here. Where is the right internet connection? Okay, I think I just found it. So we might blink for a second. Stick with me, okay? All right, it looks like we're back. Can you still hear me? Let me know once you can hear me. I think we're back. We should be good now. Just don't want us to have an interruption later. Let's see. If you can hear me, let me know. If you can hear me, I think we're back now. Eunice says that level of betrayal kills a man. Yes. You know, when you go passy, or passino, or passile, or passino, or something like that. Like, it's bad. Thank you. All right, it looks like we're back. Thank you. Just want to make sure we're not disconnected. I was supposed to make sure of that before we get started. But anyway, according to Shogunle, each time I confronted her, she would rebuff me. At a point, she told me to do my worst. And as punishment, she deprived me of sex for 6 months. Alright, so first of all, let's be clear. She doesn't want to have sex with you. Because if she did, then she will be punishing herself. Okay? She simply doesn't want to do kerewa with you. It starts there first, okay? Why? Maybe she was never attracted to you. Maybe there was something you brought to the table that made her feel safe earlier on in your marriage. It could be money. Maybe you bought that love, right? Maybe she's just straight evil, right? They exist too. It's just unlikely, okay? It's much more likely that this person was dating you, double dating you, and and then you seem like you are a better future for her, whatever, right? Nonetheless, evil. But when you call a sexless marriage punishment, is part of the reason it perpetuates the problem. Okay, if you're in a sexless marriage and your mindset says it's punishment, you will attract more of it. I'm telling you the reality. Because think about it, if you think of it as punishment, that's an attack. That would feel like an attack on you and your manhood. You're not going to react to an attack positively, right? You're not going to be like, oh, my wife, you're punishing me, I should be fine. No, let's just go. No. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to overreact all the time, and it's just going to get worse. You're going to put all the energy in overreacting as opposed to maybe learning some seduction skills, maybe learning how to rekindle things, learning how to make her feel safe. You're naturally going to want to be offensive to a person that comes off as offensive to you. This is going to come off as offensive. A person punishing you with sex, that's offensive. But again, if it's a mindset, yes, you are doing it to yourself. You're perpetuating it, okay? Just a flip in mindset and say, hey, this woman, my wife, just doesn't want to have sex with me. Just that flip in mindset can change things around. Then you can look at things a little bit with some, rational mind, right? Right? Maybe she's just not attracted anymore, and that's not really a crime. It's terrible. It's not a crime. But you can at least approach things from a standpoint of seduction, right? And not trying to say, as a duty, responsibility, you're supposed to just do it, dude. Right? Like, don't do that to yourself. It's only going to get worse. Okay? I promise. That's a promise. It's only going to get worse. Okay? But the truth came to limelight on November 30, 2018, explaining how he received the news that plunged him into a world of confusion. Psychologically, I said that. I'm reading this with you, by the way. I haven't read it. I googled it, I saw it's on Vanguard. I'm like, this is going to be a good one. All right. Psychologically, emotional trauma. I had come home early because I was feeling too well. I also did not drive because I was too weak to do so. I did not know there were signals to danger ahead. I tiptoed into the sitting room to surprise my wife. This is going to be bad. It's going to be bad. Just then I heard her speaking with someone on the phone. She was telling the person that she did not know how to break the news to me. Even worse. I thought it was going to find the wife doing kerewa with somebody in the living room. But her whispering to somebody, because it would destabilize me. She begged the person to let me have them. Let him have them. Jesus Christ. I have chills. I have chills even thinking about it. Jesus. By then it did not dawn on me who she was referring to as them. Yeah. Bombshell. And then the bombshell. I heard her say, James, darling, please leave him and my children out of this. Since you still have me. Yay! Should I say yay or ouch? It's terrible. I was still glued to the spot I was, waiting to allow her finish her conversation. Then she said, you put yourself in his shoes. If you were told you're not the biological father of 4 wonderful children, all boys, that have grown to call and know you as daddy, how would you feel? She burst into tears at that point. See, I have a different story I was going to share with you, but this one is better. I didn't know that. I thought this was just an article with facts and stats. I didn't know this story was in here. This is worse, I should say. This is a worse news, right? Not better in that sense, you know. All boys that have grown to call and know you as daddy, how would you feel? She burst into tears at that point, begging the person at the other end to let her husband and the boys be. Remember that she hasn't been herself. She's obviously living a secret lifestyle. She had not slept with the husband. Remember what I said? She just doesn't want to sleep with you, right? Someone said, but no, but she's sleeping with somebody else. Yeah, that's also true. Two things can be true at the same time. At that point, I screamed and fell on the floor unconscious. Crazy. By the time I woke up, I found myself in our family hospital with my 4 children of ages 11, 8, 5, 3 years respectively, by my bedside with my elder sister. To cut the long story short, I insisted we went for a DNA test to ascertain the paternity of my children. Lo and behold, the results showed none of them was mine. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, this is not good. Terrible. I don't comprehend why Eunice says, I don't comprehend why 2 grown adults wouldn't sit down and have a conversation why they can't engage in kerewa. That's another fantastic point that you're making, but I can't comprehend it, okay? Kerewa is sex. Kerewa means sex. It's mainly driven by the brain, okay? It's mainly driven psychologically, okay? There are people that can have sex without touching each other. Did you know that? Like they don't have to touch each other. They just have to engage psychologically and emotionally and have a full-blown out sex. It's just not physical. Okay? So once you understand that, and you understand that it's driven by that, it's also the other thing you would understand that you can comprehend that is that it's driven by attraction, obviously, right? When there's no attraction, there's no attraction. It's as simple as that, right? Now, attraction, you can absolutely influence it, but you're not going to influence it outside of time as a variable. You can't say, hey, snap, you should want to have sex with me like right now. That's not how that works, right? There's a lot of psychological thing that goes into that, right? To want to do kerewa with people, right? You're attracted to them. So naturally, as a man, you have a hard on. You don't control that. You're attracted to that person. As a woman, if you start to get moist and feel stimulated, wet, and all that kind of stuff, you don't control that. You're attracted to that person, and it's a function of a lot of things that led to that point in time. Time, patience, attraction. You like this person. They make you feel a certain type of way. Feelings, right? So, yeah, a conversation for most people only creates more awkward energy, and awkward energy and attraction don't go together. So it's not that simple. Now, as a function of time, if you've been with a person long enough and you guys have gone through ups and downs and you're married for years and you have that understanding, right? you might be able to have conversation and then be able to do it and get down, right? But for most people, that's not how it works. It gets awkward. You know what I mean by awkward energy? That awkward energy where even you feel rejected and you don't want to do it anymore. You just want to talk about it, and you already know that it's not going down that night because it's already messed up. Somebody said the wrong thing, right? Yes. So hopefully, after I've said that, you can comprehend how two grown adults, yes, become children when it's time to talk about Kiriwa, right? It just gets very, very messy and awkward. The best thing is to know how that works and know how to orchestrate that over time. Seduction, that's why I said seduction skills. You understand that it's a function of time, patience, a process, attraction, right? And no, it's not as simple as let me just talk. Why can't we just have sex? We are husband and wife. We should start having sex now. No, I know I'm exaggerating, but my point is that conversations actually tend to make it more awkward because there's one person who doesn't want to have that conversation. There's usually one person who is not attracted. So the more you have that conversation, the more turned off they are, right? So hopefully that helps, right? If the relationship is crashing and you don't want to save it, talk about it and move on. It's crashing because of a reason. There's attraction issues. There's usually that one person. There's one person who wants to talk about it. There's one person who think they want to talk about it, but they're turned off. There's something going on that's not just that moment. There's a lot going on. Sometimes somebody else is occupying that space. There's a void and they're fantasizing about somebody else. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes they're just done. At least for now. Right? So attraction is not something that when you're trying to rationalize attraction, you have to be careful because it's not rational, right? Being attracted to a person is not rational thinking. You're attracted, right? And the moment you try to forcefully overthink it without understanding that that's a function of time, patience, and process, it just gets worse. Because remember, it's not just you. There's another human being involved with their emotions, right? Okay. D-Law says, I don't think it should be mandatory because we're still asking the question, right? Too much emotional damage for the kids. D-Love is reading ahead of me. See, I'm not absolute on this, right? But these are the conversations. Thank you so much for saying that. These are the conversations I want us to have. Is it really as simple as, oh, everyone should just know? We're talking about romantic relationships here, right? There's a reason why the governments don't want to get involved because it gets very messy and it costs much more than the GDP of the country. It's messy, right? So they leave some of that agency to the people to decide because after all, it's matters of the heart. Now, if the damages become extreme to a point that is destructive from a physical, financial standpoint to the nation, they will have to do what they have to do. But we're talking about 30%. That number is not close to majority in any form. So it's going to be Oyo for a while, right? I don't think it should be mandatory. Too much emotional damage for the kids. If a hospital calls me right now and tells me my son is not mine, it wouldn't make a difference to me. It's still my son. Right? Because it's not just, see, people have this conversation like it's just women lying. Some do. Like deliberately destroying this man and giving other people's babies to them. Like this story we're reading, right? But sometimes it's this situation that we talked about. The person that swapped, that just because swapped 5,000 babies. Relationships are much more emotional than biological. I don't know if you guys get that yet. And no, it's terrible. You would like to be attached biologically to the person, but this is where the cap comes in. The relationships you have are actually, for the most part, driven emotionally. And that's the reality. Even your biological kids. Like this is one of the most honest comments I've ever seen. But it's coming from her as a lady because she could say that, like, oh, let's say somebody swapped and it will mess your mind up, right? But you're gonna be like, oh, because now it's easy now. D-Love, let's stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
It's easy for you to say because it's you, and the only people that hurt you are not people that are in your life. Somebody, a complete stranger. But when a man feels like the woman that he's trusted for all these years actually was the person who committed the fraud, yeah, it's not as easy. It's not simple. It's complicated. It has been 4 months now. My children are with my elder sister and our family while my wife fled, saying she was too scared to face me. She confessed to my sister that James was her boyfriend in the university and that she never enjoyed sex with me. Yeah, people that want to have sex with you don't punish you with sex, okay? They just don't want to have sex with you. Can that still be evil? Yes. But again, if you call it punishment, that's not the real problem. The real problem is that this person is not attracted to you. That's the actual problem. Okay? Can they still be evil doing that? Yes, they can still be evil. I'm just saying. He also did not pick up the fact that they were evil for all this time. It's not your fault. I'm just saying. You did not pick up something for all those years, right? It's not your fault. Fault is not relevant. I'm just saying somehow you're not capable of picking that up. Okay? Okay? This may sound as a Nollywood story, but it happened to me. Now the problem is, how do I start relating with the 4 boys? Each time they come around and ask where is mommy, I will secretly look for where to cry. The Shogunles are not alone in this, as another couple are at the moment experiencing dark clouds in their marriage, owing to a claim by a man. Owing to a claim by a man who just returned from Europe that their 22-year-old son, who just graduated from the university, is his. The Germany-based Nigerian claimed he had a relationship with the woman while he was preparing to leave the country, adding that she was few weeks pregnant before she married her present husband. Now they're highlighting the evil ones. Right? So the people reading this and just reading it, they can potentially go back and project this on their family, even if that's not the case. That's one of the dangers of this type of stories. But if they came here to Man of Prestige, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to shed light on that. Yes, if you find yourself always in the forums where they're talking about paternity fraud all the time, it's going to be your reality. Not reality physically, because if it's your baby biologically, right? But you're going to be moving around with your guards up, with looking over your shoulder, with bad energy in your household. As a man, you're sowing this kind of seed, it's to multiply. It's to multiply. Because you bring the seed, right? You're the driving force of everything that's happening, right? The claim has sparked up an issue that is threatening to break the 22 years union. A DNA test to determine paternity had been carried out with proof of result favoring the stranger. There are more cases. After his marriage of 13 years came to an end on a very traumatic and ignoble note, Toyin was more relieved than sad. The divorce ended several years of living with a cold and uncooperative partner who under the guise of the slightest excuse would take time off from a matrimonial home to cool off outside the country. Wait. After his marriage, 13 years came to an end on a very traumatic and ignoble note, Toyin, that's the wife, right, was more relieved than sad. I can see that. And this is what can make it feel more evil to the man. Be like, wait, you're not remorseful, you're more relieved? Yeah, because the weight of carrying that secret around for years is probably bigger than the hurt she feels for hurting you. I know it sounds terrible, but that's just the reality. The divorce ended several years of living with a cold and uncooperative partner who, under the guise of the slighted excuse, would take time off from a matrimonial home to cool off outside the country. Marital trauma. These are the effects. This article is actually brilliant. These are the effects beyond just, hey, let me go and ask for DNA test since I want to be certain. No, you need to be aware that it's not going to be that simple. Okay? And by the way, if you have doubt already, it's already bad. You already know how you feel. You know that you don't have peace of mind. So you must well just go ahead and get some relief. I'm not sure if relief will be relieving. I'm not sure. Because everyone's threshold is different. How you handle it is probably different from other people's. Right? He had always been grateful to her boss, who had also tolerated her tantrums and allowed her to walk in and out of her job as she wished. Being an old family friend, he was like uncle. He was like an uncle to BC, his wife, and had practically watched her grown up. So Tony had assumed they were all making sacrifices towards achieving a common goal, the success and well-being of BC and her children. His illusions came crumbling when he woke up one morning to realization that his wife was pregnant. By all calculations, the pregnancy could not have been his, since they had not been intimate for many months. Her cold confirmation of his observation was mind-boggling, and he wasted no time in telling their parents and close family friends what was brewing his marriage. Definitely fed up with his hiding, BC told everyone that the pregnancy belonged to her boss and parents' friend of many years, technically bringing the man's marriage down with hers. Yep. All remorseful about her actions, she returned to London away from the condemning eyes and tongues, taking all 3 children of the marriage with her. It was a very traumatic time for Tony, who succumbed to mild depression. It affected both his social life. It's very difficult for an average human being to come back from this kind of stuff. Okay? It's very difficult. Very difficult. DNA test taken by the immigration department had proved that he lied. But for the divorce papers and the proof of BC's previous adultery, which had produced a baby girl for her boss, Tony might have been jailed. It turned out that both his supposed first child and his wife's last child were fathered by the same man. Damn. Her boss at the office. Undeniable paternity. Listen, this thing is long. Yeah, it's long. It's a long article. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not sure if we need to go through all of this. I'm not sure. Let me see if there's a section I would like to. Let's just take this one, right? DNA, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, is the genetic material present in every cell of the human body, except in the case of identical multiple births. So twins have the same DNA, essentially, for identical births. Each individual's DNA is unique. A child receives half of his and her genetic DNA from the biological mother and half from the biological father. DNA paternity testing is the use of DNA profiling, genetic fingerprinting, to determine whether a man and a child or children are biologically related. The test can also determine the likelihood of someone being a biological grandparent to a grandchild. Experts say DNA paternity testing is the most accurate form of paternity testing possible. It is argued that if DNA patterns between a child and the alleged father do not match on 2 or more DNA probes, then the alleged father can be totally ruled out. So it's stats. It's essentially statistics at best. But they are what they are, right? If the DNA patterns between a mother, child, and the alleged father match on every DNA probe, the likelihood of paternity is 99.9%. One of the lessons here, again, be clear. Emotions are much more powerful than biology. Okay. Yes, and they are much more. They can destroy more. Okay. So please, emotions are not your mate by any stretch of imagination. So does that mean you should just take anyone? What I'm saying is that if you find yourself in a situation where you have to worry about biology, maybe because of your ideological attachment to biology, and you find yourself in this kind of situation, and you've built an emotional attachment to another human being, the emotions are stronger. I'm just being honest with you. Okay, you can look around you, you can look at history, you can look at stories. The emotions are stronger. You can look at people who have biological children that they don't take care of or they abandoned. They are never able to build any bond with them ever. It doesn't matter if they're biological. It may be traumatic. Some of them end up being traumatic relationship at best. Just, oh, I know for a fact that's my biological mother, but I don't have a connection. That's the reason why that is. Does that justify paternity fraud? No. No. That secret will hunt you down and will destroy you, your legacy, and your generations to come. If you're carrying this level of secret, it can destroy people. Because when I say ideological attachment, it's powerful. People have them and it can destroy them. Some people never come back mentally from it. Please don't do it to anyone, please. And if you're already in the middle of it, seek professional help. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad before it gets better, if ever. But seek professional help. I think you're better off not carrying that kind of secret. You're punishing yourself. Because like we just read, as evil as it sounds, it's more relieving than remorseful for the people that end up, it comes out in public. It's more relieving. Because the weight of the secret is painful by itself. To conduct DNA test, a blood test, or a procedure called, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not going to try. A swab is rubbed vigorously against the inside of the cheek to provide a DNA. So some people will say, hey, should I just do it secretly and just go and do the swab? Listen, bro, the relationship is already fucked. Because after you do this secret thing you want to do, you're still not going to have peace of mind. Even if you find out it's your child. There's a reason why you have these doubts. These are the different facets to the conversation that no one is having. All right? You can go out and do the secret swab if you want again, because you won't have peace of mind until you do it anyway. Do what you got to do. But that's not going to fix your relationship. That relationship is done for now, at least. And the underlying reason still needs to be addressed. There's a reason why your relationship is done. You may say, oh, that's because I always had doubts. So that means you will always have doubt. You will never trust this person. So while you go ahead and do your secret thing, which, like I said, be clear, it's not going to help you, understand that that relationship has to pack up with it too. Because after you do it, now that becomes a secret, and you find out that's your biological child. That's going to become a secret for you that you now have to carry, that you ever did this, that you ever doubted it. Now, that's in addition to the fact that the underlying cause for you doubting your relationship is still there. Your lack of trust is still there. So it's a process to fix that relationship. And like I said, it's going to get bad because before it gets better, if ever. Right? Children can be tested at any age, even while in the womb. Paternity DNA testing can even be done on an umbilical cord blood specimen at birth. Since DNA is the same in every cell of the human body, the accuracy of testing performed on chick cells utilizing the buccal swab, let's call it buccal swab, is the same as an actual blood sample. Saturday Vanguard established that the science behind determining a child's father has come to stay, and in many instances it's a lifesaver. Is it a lifesaver? That's a question for you in the chat. Having an idea of the emotional trauma that the test is going to do, weigh that against the facts that you're going to discover, the scientific fact you're going to discover. right? Now you already know that I already told you that emotions are much more stronger than anything biology, right? Or scientific, whatever you want to call it, right? Scientific, right? Can we still, because I'm not clear on the answer either, right? Can we still claim that this is always a lifesaver? Okay, let's be honest. They did say in many instances. Okay, so it's not absolute, but we can agree that it's not always a lifesaver. It really depends on how people react to it, right? Experts at major centers offering DNA testing facilities such as DNA Center confirmed the high rate of tests that turn out negative, as in you are not the father. A forensic geneticist told Saudi Vanguard that about 3 out of 10 men that undergo paternity tests are not biological fathers, because again, consider that they already have doubt to come and do this test. After all, that number may not be that bad, okay, because the number of people that go in there is already skewed in that direction. My opinion. If you want to debunk that, feel free. Maybe I'm off. He warned that the implications are often potentially serious and significantly damaging to parties involved. Yes. Yep. According to the geneticist, DNA testing is currently the most advanced and accurate technology to determine parentage. In a DNA parentage test, the result, called the probability of parentage, is 0% when the alleged parent is not biologically related to the child, and the probability of parentage is typically 99.99% when the alleged parent is biologically related to the child. However, whilst almost all individuals have a single and distinct set of genes, rare individuals known as chimeras have at least 2 different sets of genes. Yay! Some weird ones are out there, which can result in a false negative. There's a possibility of a false negative, but it's probably the exception. If the reproductive tissue has a different genetic makeup from the tissue sampled for the test. Interesting. That's some science for you. Basically, a DNA test is performed by collecting Buccal cells found on the inside. I'm just kind of rushing through it. Establishing paternity. All right, so it's long. Okay, it's a long one. This article, you can find it on Vanguard, Nigeria. You can easily Google Vanguard Nigeria paternity test. It probably will come up. Okay, it's a long one. Here's what I want to do. Okay, here's what I want to do. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see what y'all are talking about. How can people live this kind of double life though? I know. There's no way you have peace of mind. You're living a low quality of life, carrying that type of weight around. Okay? It just doesn't make sense, right? There's nothing else other than somebody who is making a terrible decision based on short-term feelings, but then it's a lie, right? And then they have to cover the lie, and then every day they kind of got comfortable, but they will have moments like flashes of reminder that they don't have peace of mind, right? Chinye, that kind of guilt is heavy to carry for years. Totally heartbreaking. Yeah, it's destructive. You're destroying yourself if you're carrying this kind of secret around, right? The end cannot be good, right? The best of it is somebody who died before the secret came out, which means they're going to hurt their loved ones, like the first story we saw earlier, right? Exactly. I will not be able to sleep carrying such heavy stuff. Yeah, an average person won't be able to carry that. Okay, they will tell. They will tell on themselves, right? But obviously, that's one of the points I'm trying to make. These are exceptions of society. Don't go and be reading this kind of stories and then project it back on your family because of your own insecurity. Insecurity is involved in this topic. When I hear people having conversations on panels and in conversations, and they're going back and forth, I hear way too many men that have turned this into insecurity, and it's going to destroy them. Because they are the same one that will fall in love blindly, and they're the same one that will get disappointed, and then potentially try to buy people because they found out something that is just as bad. So they never took all that energy that could have been used to work on themselves and build their discernment abilities, right? They put all that energy into being forensic, into being the detective. They become detective detergents, policeman of Kiniko. They just become a detective. They only study things to avoid in a woman, right? They're like, these are the things you should avoid. These are the red flag. They only see red flag everywhere. But then they now wonder why they attract it. You attract what you fear the most. Did you not know that? You attract what you fear the most. That's a fact of life. So these stories, they're so rampant, they're everywhere because they're negative. They go viral the most. They exist. If again, we already said, it's terrible. But these are evil people. They are the exception of society. On an average, you're not going to find yourself in this situation. And if you do, I'm sorry. It can happen. The statistics shows that it can happen. 3 out of 10 is significant enough. It can happen. But we still know that 7 out of 10 times, that's not going to be your situation, even if we are to believe these statistics as the end all be all, right? So I needed to address the insecurity part of reading this type of news, because once you read this kind of stuff, you end up in an echo chamber where all they discuss is paternity fraud and how terrible women are these days. And you will self-destruct yourself effectively. I can't even imagine how heavy of a load she got pregnant, not only with 1, but 2, 3, and a whole 4 child. Now that's recklessness. That's straight evil. That's not like, stop, right? That's not a person holding a secret. That's an evil person. That's a person that was living perpetually a very dangerous life, and because of their own short-term enjoyment, they didn't mind destroying another person. We need to call that exactly what it is. That is not a mistake, like Shinye said. That is not a mistake. Is Sahil here? I didn't see his comment. Where is his comment? I didn't see Sahil. He was here? I didn't see his comment. Did you mean to say man prestige? Hey, Lady Nevoa. Good to see you. But yeah, this is not a mistake. Okay? But like I said, I don't want to spend too much energy on discussing this. This is the exception. For the majority of us, we're not going to experience this, but these stories are powerful. They can be projected onto your own personal relationships. Okay? And completely destroy your relationship. If your husband is asking you for DNA test, or they are hinting it, kind of like this story I'm about to get into right now. Hey Bagava, good to see you. Sorry for being absent the past lives. I had an hectic schedule, but should be getting back to normal now. Yes, and by the way, we're getting back to normal time tomorrow, 5 p.m. tomorrow. For the rest of the week, we'll be doing live shows. I will be bringing stories. Let me even bring you up to speed in what I've decided to do. There's some trendy topics that I don't feel connected to. I'm not going to pick up every trendy topic. Like, for example, the Yul Edochie is relevant to what we're doing here. We're discussing. If it's relevant to relationships, then I will pick it up. Okay? Friendships, interrelationship dynamics. If I see that men can learn from it, like some of the fraudulent kidnapper stuff, I can still pick those up. But I want to really, really talk about relationships. I want to stay around and just talk about and always bring a story, because the other platforms are generalizing like mad people. I want to bring real life stories that we can say, hey, this, so we can learn how to pivot in life, as opposed to generalizing all women should be this, all men. All of that is mostly bullshit. Okay, so you will see more of that. We'll bring some real life stories. We'll break some. I have more than enough emails to be responding to, so we'll be focusing on those. And also, there are more than enough even stories on other platforms, on Quora, that we can learn from. Real life people stories, right? They're endless. I'll rather do that because I think we can. They won't go as viral, but we can get some real life lessons. I'd rather make sure we're leaving solid, real time impact on people, as opposed to, celebrity based nonsense that's not related to relationships. If it's related to relationships, I'll cover it. I promise. I'll cover all of them. All right. So this is the story today. Let's talk about this. Let me get into this. Let's get into this one. It's a short one. That's the one I thought we were going to discuss, but this is how it becomes insecurity. Okay, this is my favorite part about discussing paternity fraud. All that, they're evil. We know evil people exist. We know that. Majority of you watching me are not evil. You're not going to do stuff like this. You're not going to ever encounter it. So it's pointless over stressing evil people who will commit paternity fraud. Okay? Stress. Unless we discuss this part that I'm about to cover right now. So here's a quick story. She says, my husband and I had a baby boy who is now 5 months old. Ever since he came out, my husband keeps making salty comments about how he doesn't look like him. Once he'd gotten a little drunk a few weeks back, and we got into an argument over it, with him saying he found it weird that our son has a broader nose and more light skinned, when my husband has a narrower nose and darker skin. I confronted him and asked him if he wanted a paternity test, and he hesitated but said no. But he keeps making comments. So they're always the type of simps that won't engage what they want to engage with full chest too. They're dangerous, right? They have all of these doubts and they're insecure, but they won't engage it like a man. Hey, I have doubts. Let's do the test. Babe, I'm gonna hurt your feelings. This shit is eating me up. It's eating me up. I need to know. What? How dare you? I know, I'm sorry. But I want to be able to give you my full, my everything. I want to be able to, this is lingering in my mind. If we don't get it done, I won't be 100% for you and our babies. And I want to apologize in advance, but with the expectation that apology is not going to land properly. Okay, just documented, right? She'll be sad, she will cry, she might damn near leave your ass, right? But at least it's all in the open, that you don't feel secured in the relationship, as opposed to this type of terrible behavior. I confronted him and asked him if he wanted a paternity test, and he hesitated but said no, but he keeps making comments. Today, after I put up some pictures of a family outing, he said, kind of snidely, that our son looks nothing like me in any of those pictures. Now, there's some consistency here, right? He keeps making those comments, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I've never had sex with anyone but him. He's literally my first. I've never even so much as looked at another man since I met him, and I'm deeply hurt by these insinuations. Now, the same thing I said earlier is true about this. This relationship has crumbled already, but she's not paying attention to that. She's much more concerned about the symptoms, the signs, right? This type of comments, right? escape. He says that he didn't mean it that way, and that he wasn't questioning our son's parentage. Okay. Cool. Not really mean it. Didn't really mean it like that, and not questioning. But I feel like with all the comments leading up to this one, there's no other way I could have interpreted that wrong. I mean, consistency is everything, right? Consistency is everything. How do I handle this without creating more damages? Can you advise this lady? I want to wait about 5 minutes. I want to hear, what advice do you have for this lady? Ladies, if you're in the chat, what advice do you have for this lady going through this right now? Understanding that the news are terrible out there. The stats are bad, right? A man who is weak will be affected by those stats, especially if he has doubts already. His doubts will be completely inflated if he reads this kind of article from Vanguard, right? If he reads this article and he has doubts, meaning he can relate, he's going to become insecure. That's going to show up in this type of behavior. How would you advise this lady, especially if she's sure? She sounds like she's sure about our Ogun, right? How would you advise her? Let me see what you all have to say. Type that in the chat. Let me hear you. How, gentlemen, too, how would you advise? How should she go about this? I generally don't address the people that is being accused. I address the accusers or the complainers, okay? Because they're in a relationship and they have power, much more power than they realize, to influence things in the direction that they want. They do. So now, knowing that she's the one complaining about this guy's bad behavior, allegedly, right? What advice would you give her? I didn't ask you to hold him accountable. You don't have to hold him accountable. He's not here. Okay? Advise her. Okay? Advise her. What should she have done? What should she do? Right? Right? What should she do? Right? Maybe I should go through that again. Should I go through it again? I'll fly through it really quickly. My husband and I had a baby boy who is now 5 months old. Ever since he came out, my husband keeps making salty comments about how he doesn't look like him. Once he'd gotten a little drunk a few weeks back, and we got into an argument over it with him saying he just found it weird that our son has a broader nose and more light-skinned when my husband has a narrower nose and dark skin. Quote unquote weird. He's calling the baby weird. He found it. Okay, not the baby. He found it. The whole idea. Weird, right? I confronted him and asked him if he wanted a paternity test. And he hesitated but said no. But he keeps making comments. Today, after I put up some pictures of a family outing, he said kind of snidely that our son looks nothing like me in any of those pictures. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I've never had sex with anyone but him. He's literally my first. I've never even so much as looked at another man since I met him. And I'm definitely hurt by these insinuations. Okay? He says that he didn't mean it that way and that he wasn't questioning our son's parentage. But I feel with all the comments leading up to this one, there's no other way I could have interpreted that wrong. So here's the question I'm going to leave you all with. How do I handle this without creating more damages? Okay? Leave your answer. Leave your advice in the chat. Leave your advice in the comment area. Advise this young lady in the comment area. Let me know. Maybe we might have a part 2, right? Let me know what advice you will give her. Okay? And like I said, tomorrow I'll be back here at 5 p.m. with another story that we will dissect, unpack, and then we will continue to have this conversation. All right? Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. Hopefully you've been enlightened and educated. I'll see you on the next one, and peace.